Well, this morning we are taking a closer look at New York State's marijuana industry. Big talker, big topic. Right now, there are 3 dispensaries open in New York City, all in the Greenwich Village area in Manhattan. The openings met with a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement. We are expecting more openings very soon after the state approved more than 20 licenses that still have yet to get started. So for an update on the cannabis industry, going right to the source, going on the record with the Chief Equity Officer of the State Cannabis Office, Damian Fagan. Mr. Fagan joining me now. Thank you for being here on Picks and Politics for your first appearance. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get into this, right? Because we've seen 3 shops open up in New York City, specifically in one area of Manhattan, right? Lower Manhattan. Why zero in on that area?
Yeah, it's actually a really exciting, fact for us that they're all opening in that area because, if we had opened up dispensary license applications to the rest of the country and to large corporations, they also would have located there because of the foot traffic, because of the demographics, NYU. There's just a lot of opportunity there for long-term profitability. And so because we started with equity, because we started with nonprofits, those businesses now get those lucrative locations to start their businesses. The advantages for being in that area of the city are tremendous long-term for those businesses. And so we've got a Black-owned dispensary, we've got the Doe Fund, we've got Housing Works. So they'll capture that opportunity rather than the big companies.
Right, so the equity is there on that for that point. But how do you make it equitable for the other boroughs as well? How soon before we see more openings?
Well, something about equity that's important for folks to understand is equity is, a level playing field, it's access to opportunity. Traditionally, these businesses, these operators would never be able to open up in these communities, in these more wealthy parts of the city. So, in the case of Roland Connor, who opened Smacked on Bleecker Street, he's from East Brooklyn. We don't have to just have East Brooklyn people open up shops in East Brooklyn. They should also be opening up in Lower Manhattan. But the next few licenses that we're going to be opening up, we're talking Queens, we're talking the Bronx, and Upper Manhattan. So, eventually, you're going to see these stores open up in every neighborhood across the city.
All right, make a headline here. What's the next one opening? Where?
We're thinking it's going to be Queens, Astoria.
Astoria, Queens. How soon?
Within the month.
Within a month,
Ideally,
okay.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of moving pieces, but yeah, within the month.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, right? But it's a good point, Astoria, Queens. How do you determine actually when the shops will open? The 3 in the city, like we said, they're clustered in that one area. But how are you looking at the totality of locations and zeroing in? Like, how'd you choose Astoria and Queens?
So the locations for the card dispensaries are chosen by our partner agency, DASNY. They negotiate the leases and lock in the properties. For the 2 nonprofits, they secured those locations on their own. They weren't part of the fund. They weren't working with DASNY on that. But the businesses that have opened, owned by private individuals, these are locations that DASNY secured over the last year in negotiations with landlords. And so that's kind of dictating the pace of some of these store openings right now and where they're opening. But I will say that, on average, it takes anywhere between 6 to 12 months for a well-capitalized, experienced business to open up a dispensary. And so some of these guys that we've given licenses to who have never opened legal cannabis dispensaries before, they've had this license for maybe a month, 3 months, 2 months, the 2 rounds we've licensed so far. And so it's going to take a little bit longer for a lot of these operations to get off the ground. But, as you start to see the trickle come in, it's going to start accelerating a little bit over time. So by the summer, we're hoping to have at least 50 of these operations open up across the state.
Right. Am I hearing you correctly? From the moment you get the license approved to actually opening could take over a year?
Oh, yeah. For even experienced operators, there's just so many compliance steps and staffing requirements and insurance challenges that are unique to cannabis.
And I don't say this flippantly. I mean this with respect. Are you behind schedule? Because I believe it was the governor when she was running for re-election said the hope would be 20 would be open by last year.
Yeah, that was a great North Star to motivate the team. I think that a lot of people need to understand that government has its own pace. And, when the governor sets that kind of goal, it can actually be a really motivating force for all the kind of bureaucratic processes that we have to go through to speed those up a little bit. So no, we didn't hit the 20 goal. We did get our first sale last year. But ultimately, we're letting the operators, the people we gave these licenses to, dictate the pace at which they open up their businesses. When I speak to them, the one thing I say is it's not a rush. This is not a race, it's a marathon. We want these operators to be successful. So we don't want them to rush through this initial process, which is critically important to their long-term viability.
Right.
So yeah, it's dictated when they're ready to open, they'll open.
Yeah, I know it's not a rush to get the legal ones open, but there is this mad rush right now for the illegal ones to open. These illegal cannabis shops that are setting up shop almost on every corner when you look at it, right?
Yep.
So what we've seen the stepped up efforts by the New York City Sheriff's Office to kind of crack down on this. But what more can be done? Because you're giving out fines and then they open the next day.
Yeah, we're talking with legislators in Albany about some legislative changes to beef up our enforcement capacity and to bring some other state agencies into the fold to start regulating the space and ensuring that these illicit shops just can't open anymore. There are a lot of tools in our toolbox to make sure that doesn't happen, and a lot of them encompass, including landlords as part of this conversation.
Right. Let me just zero in on the legislation for a second. What is the legislation that's being looked at?
Well, we've been talking with Albany for over a year now about what a stepped up enforcement, increased penalties and added fines might look like. And so those are in negotiations right now. But there's something that we hope to release this budget season, budget cycle.
Is there more? I'm trying to figure out here. Is it more than just a fine though? Because it seems like some of these illegal cannabis shop owners are saying, well, that's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah, no, but the fines that we're increasing to would be unsurvivable as a business. And so, we can easily figure out how much money these operations are making, how much the landlords are making, and scale up our fines appropriately to kind of put them out of business.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, I would just say that, New York State has already tried to enforce away illegal cannabis. It hasn't worked.
Right.
And so, we're looking at it more comprehensively now in a way where we really got to start thinking of ways to increase the opportunities, the access for these folks to join the legal industry. Not necessarily the ones who opened up the illicit shops and ignored our cease and desist letters. Those guys may not have access to the legal industry. But for the rest of the state who have been in the legacy market, we really do have to think of more creative ways to bring them into the industry.
Understood. Hey, Damien, this is fascinating. I would love to chat with you more as more and more of these shops open. So stay in touch, okay? You're fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Chief Equity Officer of the New York Cannabis Office. Appreciate the conversation.